standards, the new standards, emerging standards, old standards, changing standards. This topic is still haunting me, and so many occasions that it comes up again. I see this heavy, let's say, fat man pushing the pram, looking a little bit weird. On the one hand, very proud of his child. He's just on his own with his child. And at the same time, well, annoyed or feeling strange probably. Is this his job? He's wondering, at least this is the expression of his face. Then I see this beautiful young woman with a headscarf. The contradiction in terms, in a way, the headscarf meant to be a sign of modesty, of hiding something, veiling something, and at the same time it is, looking at her, obviously a piece of fashion, underlining her beauty, underlining and showing her consciousness, self-consciousness, self-esteem. In this way, a contradiction in terms. And I see so many different things when it comes up again and again. The gentleman, smart, looking smart, and showing his self-esteem, but as soon as he's asked something, showing that he's a nerd in the most negative sense, not knowing what he is doing, not knowing what he is talking about. And well, yesterday I had been in Berlin, in the center, in the middle, the Alexander Square. The openness, seemingly the world's clock there, and from somewhere this beat of music disturbing in the regularity, like beating something into our head, beating something new into our head, what isn't there or what is not there yet and should be there. Every step, new standards. Lieferando, this delivery service of meals. And of course, everything is about sharing Uber bikes and sharing the taxi ride and you name it. Sharing the new standard of property, of exploitation. Smartness of cities, the new standard of subordination under an algorithm-led way of life. I was reading something in the newspaper recently, another plan of linking human brains and humans to the artificial intelligence, implanting something. Now, what was getting clear there is the idea is not enhancing human intelligence, but the idea, at least the plan as it is implemented, is only and can only be the subordination of human thinking, adapting to this kind of intelligence, limiting it, making it compatible with what goes back to Leibniz, 0, 1, 0, 1 in different combinations, a very complex system in actual fact, but only limited to the two numbers. What cannot be expressed, what cannot be thought, made thinkable in the framework of these two numbers doesn't exist. And this is the new standard we are supposed to accept. Sharing, a new term for the old property rights. What I wanted to say is, it's so obvious that we are entering a field that is full of contradictions. And linking back to what I said the other day, previously in this sequence, what the standards or standard setting is about, on the one hand, it's purely power. The material power, the forcing people by law to accept certain new standards. For the good or the bad, this is the fact. We don't necessarily see the rationality behind it or the ratio behind it. There is one, and we don't even know who is defining it. And we still accept it, even if we don't know it, if we don't understand it, especially in some societies, more, in some societies less. And of course, the German character, not least, is the authoritarian character. Adorno, Hannah Arendt, Eichmann in Jerusalem. It's not that we all are bad, that we all are following, but it is this kind of machinery that makes us accepting something, easily accepting, easily subordinating ourselves. I wouldn't say it's German, but at the same time, it is probably something that doesn't exist to the same extent in other countries. I remember Balázs, he once said, we in Hungary, we are actually all anarchists. And then there is this standard setting, call it smartness. It is accepting what is technically possible. Günther Anders said this, wrote this, whatever is possible, technically possible, we have to do, just for the sake of being technically possible. Is this smartness, or is it stupidity? Is it the same, or is it a variation of this authoritarian character? And then we have another dimension to it. It is, call it social management or something like this, where what we do, what we have to do, what we are accepted to do is defined by certain instances. The law, of course, one of the major instances in this respect, and it is something we accept. And then I come back to the first example. We don't easily accept this man pushing the pram, and in the traditional sense, not the person, seemingly the person who is caring. He is strong, he is in another area, if you want, and still accepting it. I remember years ago, I had been in Sweden doing interviews, and there was one interview with an organization for lone parents. And lone parents in Sweden at that time, it's, I guess, 10, 15 years 20 years ago, it still meant it is lone mothers. Even if at that time it was said very much Sweden is the most advanced country when it comes to equal opportunities. And there was just a moment when we wanted to start the interview. There had been actually two men pushing the pram, walking in front of this window, and I said to this lady I was going to interview, it's quite normal now that men are pushing the pram, that men are looking after the children. And she said, not really. It's just taking off, but it's still the exception. And this was especially remarkable. The interview later showed that the Swedish legal system did everything, really did everything to push people to accept it, to make it a material, to give material incentives. On the one hand, to change the roles, and on the other hand, there was kind of material penalties, if you want, if you had been sticking to the old roles. There's something of a contradiction or tension or something that is not clarified in jurisprudence. Ubi societas ibi jus. And the question is it about the civil society? Where there is society, there is law? Or is it actually the other way around, that where we have law, we find actually as well a civil society? I guess this will be bothering me for a while now. The question of who is actually defining law and what is the role of law as a factor setting norms, and at the same time it cannot set norms by itself. There has to be some acceptance. And this is what I really liked. Thanks to Zacher, I was reading one of my first law books, if you want, Jhering's Struggle of Law. And it shows the entire tension. It had been written 1870 or something. It shows the entire tension of law being an instrument and at the same time being an instrument only to the extent to which it is accepted. Foucault, we all are making law actually by accepting what is given as law. And at the same time, we are all accepting something just because it is. Beauty as such, power as such, does it exist? Whatever it is, we are facing this tension, and we are not getting aware of it because we are just living by acceptance. The problem we have today especially, that there is little space left for open dispute. Societies are to such an extent segregated that we just follow the norms. We transfer them into different areas. And this is exactly what I see as hugely dangerous and at the same time as so interesting. when it comes to recent debates. That sharing is about, in this understanding as we face it, that sharing is about property and exploiting or using power is not questioned anymore. There is still this notion of sharing as a good thing, as social support, mutuality, and of course it is there. But it is misused, abused in the present context. This is something we are not allowed to think, we are not allowed to accept. It is difficult for us to live it. And it is difficult for us to live it, especially in societies or in situations where we have a transfer from, transfer, a movement. Just looking at this painting you see in the background, an Aboriginal artist from Australia. When I saw it in this shop, I was fascinated. I was caught by it. Coming years back later to the same shop, the same artist, there was another painting like this, and again I was standing there, and it was this expression of emancipation, of standing up in a society against this society, not from outside. And I remember a kind of funny story. My African colleague and friend told me. We had been sitting years ago in Munich. He was just married. Lawyer, one of the brightest heads of his countries in social law. And he was just married. And smiling about it is only because he was able to smile about it. Just married, and we had been talking there with other friends as well from Munich, from all over the world. And he said, well, I paid, or my parents actually paid for my bride, for my wife, and I don't know how much they paid in terms of cattle, in terms of sheep, in terms of animals and whatsoever. And he said, I know it's wrong. And actually even my parents know it's wrong. But it is something we cannot change. At the moment we cannot change, we have to live it even if we don't accept it. Well, Martha, my friend, only said, well, I think it's too cheap for her. They should have paid more. It's something, living in this contradiction, and living in this contradiction without being able to change it, at least at the moment, is this exciting thing of standards. And it is this exciting thing of being individual in a situation, acting in a social context, in a societal context, without accepting it and without being able to change it. No, there is no right as such, there is no standard as such, there is no beauty as such. There's only this permanent struggle and the need for struggle. And it may be at the horizon, or it may be actually in reality, that we spot the reality of the future, knowing that the situation is different today. As I said, Alex Square, and this is in a way one of my favorite views there. Yes, the tower is still there. They didn't knock it down as so many other buildings, where they built the Schloss now and the Humboldt Forum. The tower, the TV tower, is still there. And in front of it, there is this church. We had to move, apparently, from religion. And it is still there. It seems to be the foundation. Maybe it is in some way. But at the same time, it cannot deny the dominance of a worldview, not in terms of TV, perhaps in terms of TV, but of a worldview that is much wider than religion would ever allow. It is about struggle. It's about an ongoing struggle. And only if we take it up, there's a way to productively, to constructively deal with it. Of course, all this goes far beyond Berlin. And still there's a reason, probably there's a reason why I perceive it here in Berlin strong as I did ever before. Stronger even than I perceived it in Rome, with this permanent presence of the church. Perhaps there it was just the church. And it has this nicety of a tourist attraction. Here in Berlin, it is this contradiction of the old buildings that are kind of permanently present, the superpower, the imperial power wherever you go. This massive, oppressive kind of building, especially the municipalities, the town halls. And still, it is, if you go down to earth, if you want, not the church anymore, and not the superpower anymore, but the struggle of a sharing society, a caring society, and as well a society that abuses these things just to make profit, just to change this world in its own mind and to reduce it, to reduce our thinking, possibly even in a goodwill, on 0 and 1. 0 and 1 as the new superpower, as the new imperial powers, trying to transform the old, or to maintain the old one in the best sense of Hegelian Aufhebung in a conservative way. Push away this progress, push away the openness, but maintain the conservative power it has, maintain this conservatism, the imperialism that is behind it. I think it was in the first of these diaries that or the second, where I had been there in the Bundeskanzleramt, next to the Bundeskanzleramt, the architecture showing still this ambition. Germany as a superpower, Germany as an imperial power, not ready really to take up any struggle, any fight, accepting it as an internal fight, only accepting it in the Bismarckian sense, who once said, I don't know any classes, I only know Germans. And this is what, in some way, Germany still stands for. The unification of power in favor of a certain model, but a certain model that is modified in the meantime and that is subordinating itself under interests that are actually against this possibly original liberal spirit. I'll come back to this.